Miniature Landscape Hobbies is proudly supported by these sponsors. In this video, I'm going to grab my paints, brushes, and airbrush and unleash them on the Armoured Clash range of tripods, so they can look menacing on my tabletop and still stand proudly on my display shelf. War Cradle, which makes Armoured Clash, is a sponsor for the channel, so you will find a link to their wares in the video description. This is an affiliate link, so any purchases you make there will help the channel. Let's dive into the painting process. I'm going to provide a step-by-step to not just show what I'm doing along the way, but also to provide theory. That way I hope you can adapt some of these techniques to your own painting projects. Let's get to it. Assembly. I carefully remove mold lines and sprue nubs, those tiny seams that will catch a dry brush and ruin your clean edges. A fine hobby file or sanding sponge is perfect for this. If the kit is resin or has a slick feel, give the parts a quick wash in warm water with a drop of dish soap in it. This will remove any of the mold release agent, and this helps the primer stick. For a painting handle, I superglue each model to the head of a nail. It's cheap, sturdy, and keeps my fingers off the paint surface so I don't add skin oils, which can cause weird paint behavior later. Moving to the primer coat, I prime everything a dark gray with an airbrush. Dark gray is a great middle ground. Black can crush shadows too much, white can wash out metallics. Gray preserves contrast while giving speed paints enough tooth to grip. Next, I dry brush grimy gray onto the model, and I do this twice. The first pass is broad, catching most raised areas. The second is more selective, from a top-down angle. Dry brushing here creates a value sketch. It maps where light lives on the model. Then when this is dry, I dry brush white. Twice, actually, but only on the upper surfaces and outer rims. Think the shoulders, domes, and panel edges. White tells future translucent layers where to glow. The brighter the underlayer, the more your speed paint will pop. Keep the brush really dry and use light pressure so you don't chalk up the surface. This underpainting is the secret sauce. We're letting the paint do the work later instead of fighting it now. Now I lay runic gray speed paint over the armor plates. Speed or contrast style paints are translucent, so that value sketch we created in the step before shines through and creates instant depth. Work on one area at a time and guide the paint. If it pools in a flat panel, wick the excess away with a damp brush. Don't keep scrubbing the same spot. Some speed paints can reactivate if you work them too soon. Let surface tension help you. Encourage paints into the panel lines and away from the large flats. Now we're at edge highlighting. This helps us sharpen the silhouette of the model. To highlight, I mix 75% white acrylic paint with 25% runic gray and run a fine edge highlight along the armor rim. Think of this like outlining a comic panel. Thin, deliberate lines where light would catch. Keep your paint a light skim milk consistency, thin enough to flow, but thick enough to cover. If the lines feel too stark, glaze a super thin runic gray along the edges to help it blend. For the metallic trim, I use AK brand paint markers, brass for the decorative trim, and gunmetal for the exposed machinery. Shake these markers really well. You also need to use a light touch with these to get the smooth coverage of the marker without risking a blot. Now I use Army Painter Strong Tone as a wash for panel lines and recesses. It also tones down the metallics. Remember to spread and push the wash in a controlled way rather than flooding the whole area. Capillary action will do the heavy lifting. If you get a tide mark on a flat panel, immediately feather it with a clean, damp brush. This will make sure that everything looks natural. With shining silver, I highlight metals by running the side of the brush along the rims and corners. This dry edge technique gives razor-sharp lines. Add tiny dot highlights on bolts and corners to sell a crisp machine look. Remember, metallic highlights can be overpowering, so less is more. All the glowing windows, weapon ports, and lenses get a base of pure white first. White undercoats make translucent colors shine. Then I mix 50% maize yellow speed paint with 50% shamrock green and glaze it over the white. Keep it thinner near the outer rim and more saturated at the light source. For highlights, I use German yellow to punch the center, then I add a little white to the German yellow to place tiny glints and outlines at the edge of the rim. A final pinprick of pure white right at the brightest points sells the energy. For the tips of the weapons, I apply Fire Giant Orange. I concentrate the color nearest the emitter and soften it outwards to suggest heat buildup. A tiny touch of white at the absolute hottest point sells the idea of energy about to discharge. Once everything is dry, I like to apply a couple coats of matte varnish to the entire model. These are going to be gaming pieces after all, so they need to be able to withstand the wear and tear. Then I add a little bit of gloss varnish just over the lenses and the windows to make them read like glass. This protects your work and gives the glowing points a very convincing shine. And here's the finished result. The underpainting makes the armor rich and dimensional, the metallics look sharp and industrial, and the glow effects bring the alien menace to life. With these simple yet repeatable steps, you can get your own creations on the tabletop quickly, while still looking striking. So now I've got some suitably scary tripods to menace my opponents in my games of Armoured Clash. Please be sure to check in with my channel in the future to see more hobby projects come to life. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and consider joining my Patreon for awesome deals and perks, and support my channel while doing it. See you next time for more miniature gaming, painting, and diorama videos. But most importantly, until then, remember to keep building life in miniature.